The stars looked cold and distant through the observation window. Admiral Park stood alone, her hands clasped behind her back, watching the darkness of space. She was 62 years old now. Her hair had turned gray, and her face carried the weight of too many years spent following rules she hated. Behind her, the Bridge of the Soul's Vengeance hummed with quiet activity. Officers moved between stations, checking systems, running diagnostics. Everything was ready for the inspection. Everything was always ready for the inspection. Commander Hen walked up beside her, was younger, maybe 40, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She held it in her hands, scrolling through protocols and procedures. "They are early," said. Her voice was flat but could hear the anger underneath. "Again." Nodded slowly. "They are always early. They want to catch us hiding something." Through the window, she could see the Coalition inspection fleet approaching. 3 massive ships, each one bigger than anything humanity was allowed to build. The lead ship belonged to an insect-like race with compound eyes and clicking mandibles. Their vessels looked like giant beetles made of metal and hate. For 300 years, humanity had lived under the Galactic Accord. The treaty had been signed when Earth first made contact with the Interstellar Coalition. Back then, humans were excited. They thought they were joining a community of peaceful species. They thought the galaxy would welcome them. They were wrong. The Coalition looked at humanity and saw something dangerous. Humans bred too fast. They invented too quickly. They asked too many questions and accepted too few answers. The older races had watched younger species rise and fall for millions of years. They knew the pattern, and humanity did not fit the pattern. So they created the Accord. The terms were simple. Humanity would limit their expansion to 12-star systems. They would not build warships larger than patrol vessels. They would not develop weapons beyond a certain level. They would submit to inspections whenever the Coalition demanded. And humanity, young and afraid and alone in a hostile galaxy, had agreed. 300 years later, Admiral Park watched the inspection fleet approach and wondered how much longer her people could survive like this. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the mountains of the Korean peninsula, Chancellor read the latest reports from the outer colonies. His office was small and plain, with bare walls and a single desk covered in papers, and he had never liked luxury. Luxury was for people who had time to enjoy it. The reports were bad. They were always bad. 7 was running out of food. The colony had grown too large for its agricultural systems, and the Coalition had their request to expand to nearby planets. People were starting to go hungry. New was overcrowded. The space station had been built to hold 50,000 people. Now it held 300,000. Families lived in corridors. Children grew up without ever seeing open sky. The mining stations near Jupiter reported disease outbreaks. Workers were dying from lung infections caused by poor air filtration. The Coalition had refused to allow upgrades to the life support systems. Set down the reports and rubbed his tired eyes. 12-star systems. That was all humanity had. 12 systems for 15 billion people, with more being born every day. It was not enough. It had never been enough. His communicator beeped. He answered it. "Chancellor," said the voice on the other end. It belonged to Doctor, the head of Project Horizon. "We are ready." Felt his heart beat faster. "Are you certain?" "Yes, the weapons are complete. The engines work. We have tested everything in secret. Humanity can fight now if you give the order." For 20 years, Project Horizon had operated in the shadows. Hidden facilities scattered across the 12 systems, disguised as mining operations or research stations. Thousands of scientists and engineers, all working on technologies that the Coalition had forbidden. Weapons that could crack moons, engines that could cross the galaxy in days, ships that could stand against anything the Coalition could send. All of it illegal, all of it hidden, all of it waiting for the moment when humanity would finally say enough. Not yet, said. We need a reason, something that will unite all of humanity, something that will make even the pacifists want to fight. He did not have to wait long. 3 days later, a human refugee ship crossed into restricted space. The ship was called the Morning Star, and it carried 3,000 civilians fleeing the overcrowded stations around Neptune, families with children, old people looking for a place to die in peace, young couples hopping to start new lives. They had heard rumors of an unclaimed planet in a nearby system, a world with breathable air and clean water, a world where they could live without the coalition watching their every move. The patrol fleet intercepted them at the border. There was no warning, no demand to surrender, no attempt to turn them back. They simply opened fire. 3,000 people vanished in a flash of light, mothers holding their babies, children who had never hurt anyone, grandparents who just wanted to see grass one more time before they died. Gone, all of them gone. The news spread across human space like wildfire. People gathered in the streets of every colony, every station, every settlement. They watched the footage captured by a distant human observation post. They saw the Morning Star break apart under weapons fire. They heard the final transmission from the ship's captain, a woman named, as she realized what was happening. Please, she had said, we have children on board. Please, we are not soldiers. We are just people. We just want to live. Please. And then silence. Chancellor addressed the United Earth Assembly that night. The chamber was full. Representatives from every colony, every faction, every political party. They had come to hear what their leader would say. They had come to see if humanity would finally stand up. Walked to the podium. He looked out at the assembled representatives. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with a cold fire. 300 years ago, he began, we signed the Galactic Accord. We signed it because we were afraid. We were young and small and alone, and the galaxy was vast and full of things that could destroy us. We signed it because we thought it would bring peace. He paused. The chamber was completely silent. We honored the accord for 3 centuries. We followed every rule. We accepted every humiliation. We watched our people starve and suffocate and die, and we did nothing because we believed that peace was worth any price. His voice grew harder. 3 days ago, they destroyed the Morning Star. 3,000 of our people, families, children, they were not soldiers. They were not spies. They were refugees fleeing the prisons we call colonies, looking for a place where they could breathe. He slammed his fist on the podium. The coalition answered with blood. They murdered our children and called it border enforcement. They slaughtered our families and called it peacekeeping. Straightened, when he spoke again, his voice was calm and cold. We signed the accord in fear. We honored it in hope. They answered with blood. He looked directly into the camera that was broadcasting his words to every human in the galaxy. As of this moment, the Galactic Accord is void. The chains are broken. Humanity is free. On the bridge of the Soul's Vengeance, Admiral Park watched the Chancellor's speech. When it ended, she turned to Commander Han. Signal the hidden fleets, she said. Tell them it is time. Smiled for the first time in years. With pleasure, Admiral. Across the galaxy, in asteroid fields and gas giants and dark spaces between stars, human ships that had hidden for decades began to power up their engines. Weapons that had never been fired prepared to speak. The war for the universe had begun. The coalition expected protests. They expected angry messages and diplomatic incidents. They expected humanity to shout and complain and eventually accept their place in the galaxy, like every other young species had done before them. They did not expect Admiral Park. 72 hours after Chancellor declared the accord void, human fleets appeared from nowhere. Ships that the coalition had never seen. Ships that should not exist. They came out of asteroid fields and emerged from the clouds of gas giants. They rose from the dark spaces between stars where no one ever looked. The coalition had believed humanity had no real military. They had believed the inspection teams had found everything. They had believed that 300 years of oppression had broken the human spirit. They were wrong about all of it. Captain commanded the strike carrier. He was 45 years old with a face and steady hands. He had spent 20 years pretending to be a cargo ship captain while secretly training for this day. Now, finally, he could stop pretending. "All ships report ready," said Lieutenant Bay, his tactical officer. She was young, only 28, but her mind worked faster than anyone had ever met. She could see patterns in chaos and find weaknesses in any defense. Looked at the... Ahead of them, the shipyards at Nexus Prime filled the darkness of space. Thousands of ships under construction, repair facilities, weapons factories. It was the largest military installation in 3 sectors. And it was about to die. "Signal," the fleet said. "Begin the attack." The surged forward, followed by 200 human warships. They were smaller than the vessels. They looked almost fragile compared to the massive beetle ships of the coalition. But looks could be deceiving. The defenders moved to intercept. They outnumbered the human fleet 3-1. Their commanders felt confident. They had crushed rebellions before. They knew how to deal with young species that forgot their place. The first battleship exploded before it could fire a single shot. Human weapons, developed in secret for 20 years, tore through coalition shields like they were made of paper. Energy beams that burned hotter than stars. Missiles that could track their targets through any jamming. That fired projectiles fast enough to punch through any armor. They tried to adapt. They changed their formations. They adjusted their shield frequencies. They called for reinforcements. Nothing worked. Lieutenant Bay coordinated the attack with perfect precision. She moved ships like pieces on a game board, always striking where the enemy was weakest. When they tried to concentrate their forces, she split the human fleet and attacked from multiple directions. When they spread out to cover more ground, she brought the fleet together and punched through their line. In 6 hours, the largest military installation in 3 sectors was burning debris. Captain stood on his bridge and watched the shipyards die. He thought about the morning star. He thought about 3,000 people who had just wanted to find a new home. "This is for them," he said quietly. "This is for all of them." On the diplomatic front, Ambassador Lee delivered humanity's message to the Coalition Council. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with gray hair and kind eyes. She looked like someone's grandmother. The coalition representatives expected her to beg for mercy or offer a surrender. Instead, she smiled at them and spoke words that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. "You caged us because you feared what we might build. You starved our children because you feared how fast we multiply. You killed our families because you feared where we might go." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You were right to fear us, but you should have killed us when you had the chance." She turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the coalition representatives sat in stunned silence. The war spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Human fleets appeared everywhere, striking targets the coalition thought were safe. Supply depots, communication stations, mining operations. Nothing was beyond their reach. General Shin oversaw the ground campaigns. He was a big man, thick with muscle and covered in scars from a lifetime of fighting. He had been a soldier since he was 18, serving in the colonial defense forces. For 40 years, he had watched the coalition treat his people like animals. Now he was going to make them pay. His forces landed on 7, the colony that had been starving under coalition rule. What they found there made even hardened soldiers weep with rage. The human colonists had been forced to work in underground mines, extracting valuable minerals for coalition corporations. They worked 16-hour shifts in dangerous conditions. When they got sick or injured, They were replaced rather than treated. Their children worked alongside them as soon as they were old enough to hold a tool. Meanwhile, coalition species lived in orbital luxury stations above the planet. They had fresh food, clean air, and every comfort. They looked down at the humans digging in the dirt and felt nothing but contempt. General Shin gathered the colonists together after his forces secured the planet. He looked at their thin bodies and hollow eyes. He saw the scars on their hands and the dust in their lungs. "You are free now," he told them. "The coalition will never hurt you again." On Nu, his forces discovered something even worse. Mass graves hidden beneath the station's recycling facilities. Thousands of bodies, men, women, and children who had spoken against the Accord or tried to organize resistance. The coalition had been quietly killing dissidents for generations. Whenever someone became too troublesome, they simply disappeared. Their families were told they had been transferred to other colonies. No one ever asked questions, because asking questions could make you disappear too. General Shin transmitted images of the graves to every human settlement in the galaxy. He did not need to add any commentary. The pictures spoke for themselves. The rage that followed was not strategic. It was personal. Every human who saw those images felt something break inside them, something that had been holding back their anger for 300 years. Sergeant O and her squad became legends on the front lines. She was 32 years old, born on an orbital station around Jupiter. She had grown up breathing recycled air and dreaming of open skies. When the war started, she was one of the first to volunteer. Her squad called themselves the Ghost Wolves. They specialized in impossible missions behind enemy lines, rescue operations, assassination of coalition commanders, sabotage of critical infrastructure. Where coalition forces expected frightened colonists, they found warriors who had been waiting their whole lives for this moment. The Ghost Wolves struck without warning and vanished before anyone could respond. They became a symbol of human defiance, proof that the coalition could be hurt. Though a crystalline race that communicated through vibrations tried to negotiate peace, they sent diplomats to Earth with offers of compromise, limited expansion rights, better treatment of colonists, a revised accord that would give humanity more freedom. Chancellor listened to their offers. Then he sent them home with a simple message. There will be no new accord. There will be no compromise. There will be only victory or death. The Delph, an aquatic race that lived in vast underwater cities, mobilized their deep space hunters. Their ships were fast and deadly, crewed by beings who could survive pressures that would crush human vessels. They had been the coalition's enforcers for centuries, hunting down anyone who challenged the established order. Now they hunted humanity. The first battles between human and Delph fleets were costly. The Delph knew how to fight. They had done it for thousands of years. Human ships were destroyed. Human soldiers died. But humanity did not stop. They could not stop. They had seen the mass graves of Nu. They had heard Captain begging for the lives of children on the Morning Star. They knew what waited for them if they lost. 6 months into the war, the coalition finally understood their mistake. They had thought humanity was like other young species. They had thought humans could be contained, controlled, broken. They had been catastrophically wrong. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Soul's Vengeance, reviewing battle reports from across the galaxy. Human forces were advancing on every front. Coalition defenses were crumbling. The old order was dying. Commander Han approached with a message from Earth. "The Chancellor wants to know how long until we reach the coalition," she said. Smiled, it was not a kind smile. "Tell him soon," she said, "very soon." The fire was spreading, and nothing in the galaxy could put it out. 6 months into the war, the coalition understood they had made a terrible mistake. This was not a rebellion they could crush. This was not a young species they could frighten into submission. This was something they had never faced before. Humanity did not fight like other races. They did not seek territory or resources or political advantage. They did not want to negotiate better terms or win a seat at the coalition table. They wanted to burn everything down. Admiral Park orchestrated the impossible. Her staff called it Operation Shattered Sky. 17 simultaneous strikes on coalition strongholds across the galaxy. No one had ever attempted anything like it. The coordination alone should have been impossible. The logistics should have failed. But Admiral had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. She knew every shipping lane, every patrol route, every weakness in coalition defenses. She had studied their tactics until she could predict their responses before they made them. Her flag captain commander managed the fleet coordination from the command center of the Soul's Vengeance. Was a quiet woman who rarely spoke, but her mind could track hundreds of ship movements at once. She saw the battlefield like a living thing, constantly shifting and changing. Chief Engineer Moon kept the ships running on salvaged parts and human ingenuity. The coalition had never allowed humanity to build proper shipyards, so human engineers had learned to make do with whatever they could find. Could rebuild a damaged engine using parts from 3 different civilizations. She could make weapons work that their original designers would not recognize. The fell first, not conquered but liberated. For millions of years, society had been divided into castes. The warrior caste ruled everything. They controlled the government, the military, the economy. Below them were the worker caste, billions of who served their masters without question. The workers had been bred for obedience. Their genes had been modified to make them docile and compliant. They had no rights, no voice, no hope of ever changing their situation. Then humanity arrived. Political officer made first contact with dissidents hiding in the underground tunnels beneath the capital city. Was a specialist in alien psychology. He understood how different species thought and what motivated them. He spent 3 days talking with the dissident leaders. He learned about their history, their grievances, their dreams of freedom. He discovered that the worker caste had been secretly resisting for generations, passing down stories of rebellion from parent to child. The warrior caste thinks you are mindless drones, told them. They believe their genetic modifications made you incapable of independent thought. They are wrong. You have been thinking for yourselves this entire time. You have just been waiting for the right moment. He offered them a choice. Stand with humanity and fight for their freedom, or continue serving masters who would never see them as equals. The uprising began 3 hours before human forces reached the planet. Worker caste sabotaged defense systems, opened gates for human troops, and turned on their warrior caste overlords. By the time Admiral's fleet arrived, the planet was already in chaos. The warrior caste surrendered within a week. Those who refused were killed by their own workers. Humanity did not occupy they simply left it in the hands of the worker caste, with enough weapons to defend themselves. A new government formed, led by beings who had spent their entire existence being told they were nothing. They were different. Their crystalline bodies required very specific environmental conditions. Temperature, pressure, humidity, and electromagnetic fields all had to be exactly right, or their bodies would crack and shatter. Dr. The Fleets discovered this weakness during the first engagements with forces. He noticed that ships always maintained precise internal environments. Even small fluctuations caused visible distress to their crews. He found something else too. They communicated through a shared mental link that connected all members of their species. They could share thoughts and experiences across vast distances. It was what made them such effective soldiers. Every in a battle knew exactly what every other was experiencing. But that connection had a frequency, and frequencies could be disrupted. Developed a weapon he called the Silence. It broadcast interference patterns that blocked communication. When human forces deployed it during the Battle of Crystal Shore, the results were devastating. Soldiers suddenly found themselves cut off from each other. For the first time in their lives, they were alone inside their own heads. They could not coordinate. They could not share information. They could not even comfort each other. Many of them simply stopped moving, paralyzed by the shock of isolation. Others panicked, firing randomly at shadows. Some turned their weapons on themselves rather than endure the silence. The fleet shattered, literally shattered, as distressed soldiers lost control of their environmental systems and their crystalline bodies cracked apart. Only the Delph remained formidable. Their aquatic nature made them difficult to fight. They lived on ocean planets, beneath miles of water where human soldiers could not easily follow. Their ships were designed for extreme pressure environments. Their bodies could survive conditions that would kill most other species instantly. Vice Admiral proposed a different approach. She was an older woman, nearly 70, with white hair and a reputation for unconventional thinking. She had spent her career fighting battles that other admirals said could not be won. "We cannot invade their worlds," she told Admiral. "The ocean is their territory, and they know it better than we ever will. But we do not need to invade. We just need to isolate." Her blockade strategy turned Delph space into a prison. Human ships surrounded every Delph system, preventing any vessels from entering or leaving. Supply convoys were intercepted. Communication relays were destroyed. The Delph found themselves cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Their fleet was still powerful, but it was trapped. They had to stay close to there to protect them. They could not project power beyond their own borders. They could not help their coalition allies. The Delph admirals raged against the blockade. They launched attacks against human positions, trying to break through. But every time they concentrated their forces for an assault, Vice Admiral simply moved her ships, refusing to give them a target. "Let them guard their oceans," she said. "Eventually they will realize that they are guarding a cage." Back on Earth, Chancellor faced difficult decisions. The war was being won, but at a terrible cost. Human casualties numbered in the millions. Entire colonies had been destroyed in coalition counterattacks. The economy was straining under the pressure of total war. Minister of Defense pushed for complete annihilation. He wanted to destroy the coalition, kill their leaders, and eliminate any possibility of future revenge. He argued that mercy would only invite another war in 100 years. Foreign Minister Nam disagreed. She believed humanity should offer peace terms now, while they held the advantage. Absorb the coalition into a new human-led government. Use their technology and resources to build something better. The debate split the government. Some ministers supported, others sided with Nam. The assembly argued for weeks without reaching a decision. Then Doctor unveiled her latest creation, and the debate became irrelevant. She called it the Horizon Gate, a device that could create stable wormholes between any 2 points in space, regardless of distance. Instantaneous travel across the galaxy, across the universe if they wanted. "With this technology," she told the assembly, "there is nowhere in existence that humanity cannot reach. No enemy can hide from us. No distance can protect them." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "The galaxy is no longer big enough to contain us. The universe itself is open." Chancellor looked at the Horizon Gate projections and made his decision. "We are not going to conquer the coalition," he announced. "We are going to liberate it, every species they have oppressed, every world they have controlled. We are going to set them all free, and if anyone tries to stop us, we will show them what happens when you cage humanity." The assembly voted unanimously in favor. Admiral Park received her new orders aboard the Soul's Vengeance. She read them twice to make sure she understood. "We are not stopping at the coalition borders," she told her officers. "We are going beyond, into regions of space no one has ever explored. We are going to find out what else is out there. Commander Hand smiled. And if we find something that wants to stop us? His eyes were cold and hard. Then we will teach them the same lesson we taught the Coalition. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not break. Humanity fights until there is nothing left to fight. The fleet prepared to move. The horizon gates activated, and humanity stepped into the unknown. They did not know it yet, but they were about to meet something far older and far more dangerous than the Coalition had ever been. The architects were watching, and they were not pleased. The chaos attracted attention from beyond known space. Something old and vast turned its gaze toward the galaxy and saw what humanity had done. It did not approve. The architects had existed since before the stars were born. They were beings of pure energy and mathematics, minds so vast that entire civilizations were nothing more than passing thoughts to them. For 1 billion years, they had shaped the galaxy according to their designs. They had seeded worlds with life. They had guided evolution toward predetermined ends. They had created order from chaos. The Coalition races were their creations. The Delph, and 1,000 other species had been designed by the architects. Their genes had been written like code. Their societies had been programmed to develop along predictable paths: rise, plateau, decline. The same pattern, repeated endlessly across millions of years. Humanity was different. Humanity was a mistake. Commander Ryu led the first expedition through the horizon gate into unknown space. He was a young man, only 35, but he had proven himself in 12 battles against Coalition forces. Admiral had chosen him personally for this mission. "Find out what is out there," she had told him. "Find out if we have any more enemies we need to worry about." His ship, the Pioneer's Dream, carried a crew of 500 and enough weapons to fight a small war. They jumped through the horizon gate and emerged in a region of space that no human had ever seen. The stars were wrong. That was the first thing noticed. The patterns were different from anything in human star charts. They were in a completely new part of the universe. "Navigation cannot determine our position," reported his first officer, a woman named Go. "We are very far from home." Nodded slowly. "Begin scanning. Look for anything artificial, anything that might indicate intelligent life." They did not have to look for long. The structure appeared on their sensors almost immediately. It was enormous, bigger than any space station or ship that humanity had ever built. It hung in the void between stars, a twisted shape of impossible geometry that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Dr. Ara, the expedition's historian, and studied the readings with growing excitement. She was an older woman, nearly 60, who had spent her life researching the origins of intelligent life in the galaxy. "This technology is incredibly old," she said. "I mean genuinely ancient. The materials alone are older than most star systems. Whatever built this, they have been around for a very long time." Made a decision. "We are going in, prepare a boarding team." The inside of the structure was even stranger than the outside. Corridors twisted in ways that should have been impossible. Gravity shifted randomly from one section to another. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to move when you were not looking directly at them. Doctor recorded everything, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. She found chambers filled with preserved specimens from thousands of different species. She found machines whose purpose she could not begin to guess. She found records. The records changed everything. They were written in a mathematical language that took Dr. weeks to decode. But when she finally understood what they said, she called an immediate meeting with Commander and the senior officers. "The architects," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "That is what they call themselves. They have been shaping life in this galaxy for over 1 billion years. Every intelligent species we have encountered, the Coalition races, all of them, they were designed, created, engineered for specific purposes." She pulled up images from the records. They were designed to be soldiers and workers. They were designed to be administrators and record keepers. The Delph were designed to be hunters and enforcers. Every species has a role. Every species was built to serve the architect's grand design. What about humanity? Asked. What were we designed for? Doctor's face was pale. That is the thing, Commander. We were not designed at all. We are an accident, a mutation that somehow survived. According to these records, humanity was scheduled for extinction 17 times over the past million years. She showed them more images. Asteroid impacts that should have destroyed Earth but mysteriously changed course. Plagues that should have wiped out ancient human populations but suddenly became non-lethal. Nuclear wars that should have happened but somehow did not. Something protected us, she said. Every time the architects tried to eliminate us, something interfered. They do not know what. Their records show confusion, frustration. They could not understand why this one species kept surviving. Sat in silence for a long moment. So the coalition was never really our enemy. They were just following their programming. The real enemy is these architects. Yes, Doctor agreed. And according to these records, they have noticed what we did to the coalition. They are not happy. The attack came without warning. The architects dispatched their enforcers. These were not living beings but machines of impossible scale. Each one was larger than a moon, powered by energies that human science could not explain. They had been designed to prune unruly species, to eliminate anything that threatened the architect's grand design. Admiral Park faced them at what would become known as the Battle of the Void. She commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled, over 3,000 ships drawn from every corner of human space. It was magnificent. It was hopelessly outmatched. The first enforcer appeared from nowhere, materializing directly in the center of the human formation. It began firing before anyone could react. Energy weapons that erased matter from existence. Gravity beams that crushed ships like paper. Drones that swarmed over human vessels and tore them apart piece by piece. 600 ships died in the first hour. Admiral watched good officers, people she had known for decades, vanish in flashes of destructive light. The soul's vengeance shook under repeated impacts. We cannot fight these things directly, Commander Hand shouted over the noise of alarms. They are too powerful. I know, replied. Her mind was racing, looking for any weakness, any opportunity. Signal all ships, fall back to defensive positions. We need time to think. Captain, commanding the on the far side of the battle, saw something that everyone else had missed. He had been fighting coalition forces for months. He knew how they moved, how they thought, how they responded to threats. The enforcers moved the same way. Lieutenant Bay, he called to his tactical officer, look at their attack patterns, tell me what you see. Studied the data for several seconds, her eyes widened. They are completely predictable. Every response follows a logical pattern. When we move left, they counter to the right. When we concentrate forces, they spread out to compensate. It is like fighting a machine. It is fighting a machine, realized. The architects designed them to fight coalition-style warfare, methodical, hierarchical, logical. They have never faced anything else. He opened a channel to Admiral. Admiral, the enforcers cannot handle chaos. They were built to fight enemies that behave rationally. If we stop being rational, they will not know how to respond. Understood immediately. All ships, this is the Admiral. New orders, break formation, attack randomly, retreat without reason. Advance into impossible positions. Do not follow any logical pattern, be unpredictable, be chaotic, be human. The human fleet scattered like leaves in a storm. Ships attacked and retreated at random. Some charged directly at enforcers while others fled in apparently meaningless directions. Weapons fired without coordination. Formations dissolved and reformed without purpose. The enforcers' targeting algorithms collapsed under the unpredictability. They had been designed to fight enemies that behaved according to mathematical models. Humanity followed no model. Their actions made no sense. Lieutenant Bay rewrote the fleet's tactical protocols in real time. She created patterns that were designed to look like patterns, but actually contained no pattern at all. She moved ships in ways that seemed purposeful but led nowhere. The enforcers slowed. Their response times increased. They began making mistakes. General Shin saw the opportunity. Ground forces prepare for boarding action. We are going inside those things. His launch toward the nearest enforcer, weaving through weapons fire that suddenly seemed less accurate. Sergeant O led her Ghost Wolves squad through the hull breach and into the alien machine. The inside of the enforcer was a maze of unfamiliar technology, systems that pulsed with strange energies, corridors that seemed designed for beings very different from humans, but a machine was still a machine. It had weak points. It could be destroyed. And her squad fought their way through automated defenses that seemed confused by their unpredictable movements. They found the central core after 3 hours of brutal combat. It was a sphere of pure energy, pulsing with power that made their skin tingle. Set the charges, ordered, maximum yield. They barely made it out before the explosions began. The enforcer shuddered, then went dark. Its weapons stopped firing. Its drones fell silent. Across the battlefield, humans cheered. But the victory was not complete. There were still more enforcers, still more architects beyond them. And then something happened that no one expected. The remaining enforcers stopped attacking. They hung motionless in space for several long seconds. Then they retreated, vanishing the same way they had appeared. Admiral stared at the empty space where they had been. They are running. They are actually running. They have never faced anything like us, Commander said. They do not know how to fight chaos. Nodded slowly. Good. Let them go back to their masters. Let them tell the architects what happened here today. She turned to face her remaining officers. We won this battle, but the war is just beginning. The architects will return. They will bring more enforcers, more weapons, more power. We need to be ready. How do we prepare to fight gods? Someone asked. Smiled. It was a hard smile, full of defiance. The same way we prepared to fight the coalition. We find their weaknesses. We exploit their assumptions. We refuse to be what they expect us to be. She looked out at the stars. They have been controlling this galaxy for 1 billion years. They think they know everything. They think they can predict anything. They have never been wrong before. Her eyes blazed with determination. We are going to prove them wrong. The architects offered negotiation. After 1 billion years of absolute control, they had encountered something they could not simply erase. For the first time in cosmic history, they were uncertain. Ambassador Lee received the invitation aboard the Soul's Vengeance, a communication from beyond known space, written in mathematical language that Dr. Ara translated. The architects wanted to talk. It could be a trap, Admiral warned. Nodded. It could be, but we need to understand what we are truly fighting. The coalition was just a symptom. The architects are the disease. She traveled through the Horizon Gate to a location in the message, a place between galaxies, where stars were scattered so far apart that the sky was almost completely black. There, floating in the endless void, she found the architect representative waiting for her. The being called itself the Keeper. It was not made of matter in any way understood, light and mathematics given form, equations that had somehow become conscious. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in her mind. You are the mistake, the Keeper said, the error in our calculations. We have watched your species since before your ancestors climbed down from trees. You were never supposed to develop aggression. Your evolutionary path was designed for docility. Stood firm, refusing to show fear. What do you mean, designed? All life in this galaxy was seeded by us. Every species developed according to our plans. The Delph, all of them were created for specific purposes. They grow, they mature, they serve, and eventually they are harvested. This is the natural order we established. Harvested, his voice was cold. Resources, ambassador, energy, consciousness. There are powers beyond this galaxy that require sustenance. We provide it. That has been our function for longer than your star has existed. The truth hit like a physical blow. The coalition had not been oppressing humanity. They had been fattening them. The accord had not been about containing a dangerous species. It had been about keeping the livestock calm until slaughter time. You bred us like cattle, she said. We bred all of them like cattle. Your species was meant to be the same. Docile, compliant, perfect for collection. But something went wrong with your development. Mutations we could not explain. Behaviors we could not predict. Every time we tried to correct the error, something interfered. What interfered? The keeper hesitated. For a being of pure logic, it seemed almost confused. We do not know. That is what disturbs us most. In 1 billion years, we have never encountered a variable we could not account for. You are that variable. You are chaos given form. The conversation lasted 72 hours. Learned things that changed her understanding of the universe. The architects were not gods. They were servants, bound to powers even greater than themselves. Powers that existed in dimensions humans could not perceive. The galaxy was just a farm, one of millions scattered across reality. But she also learned that the architects were afraid, not of humanity's weapons or fleets, but of what humanity represented, an element of randomness in a universe built on order, a mistake that could not be corrected. We offer a compromise, the keeper said finally. Leave this galaxy, take your ships, your people, your chaos, and go somewhere else. We will open a gate to another galaxy far from here. You can do whatever you want there. Just leave our garden alone. Considered the offer for exactly 3 seconds. No. The keeper seemed surprised. You would refuse salvation. We could destroy you. It would cost us greatly, but we could do it. Then destroy us, replied. But understand something. We are not afraid of death. We are not afraid of you. We were bred to be food, and we refuse that fate. Every species in this galaxy was bred to be food, and we will not leave them to that fate either. She stepped closer to the being of light and mathematics. You made a mistake when you created this galaxy. You made life, real life, beings that can think and feel and dream. You made them just to consume them, but they became more than you intended, and now you face a choice. What choice? Stop the harvest. Free all the species you have enslaved. Let them develop on their own without your interference. Do that and we will have peace. The keeper was silent for a long moment. And if we refuse? Smiled. It was the same smile she had worn when she told the coalition that they should have killed humanity when they had the chance. Then we will burn your garden to the ground. We will teach every species in this galaxy how to fight. We will spread chaos to every corner of existence. And when we are done, there will be nothing left for you or your masters to harvest, ever again. She turned and walked back toward her ship. You have 1 year to decide. The meeting of human commanders took place on Earth, in the same bunker where Chancellor had once read reports about starving colonies. Now the walls were covered with star maps showing territories no human had ever seen before. Admiral Park presented the situation. The architects have not responded to Ambassador Lee's ultimatum. We must assume they intend to fight. Then we fight, said Captain. We beat their enforcers once. We can do it again. The enforcers were just the beginning, Doctor interrupted. She had been studying the technology recovered from the Battle of the Void. The architects have weapons we cannot even comprehend. If they commit their full power against us, we will not survive. General Shin shook his head. So what do? Run? No, said Vice Admiral. We do what we did with the Delph. We do not fight them directly. We make the fight too expensive for them to win. Doctor agreed. The architects need this galaxy intact. They need the species here alive and productive. If we threaten to destroy everything, they lose their investment. You are talking about holding the entire galaxy hostage, said Chancellor. Yes, replied. That is exactly what we are talking about. The plan took shape over the following months. Human engineers installed horizon gates throughout the galaxy, connecting every inhabited world. Doctor developed weapons that could trigger chain reactions in stars. If the architects attacked, humanity could destroy the galaxy itself, leaving nothing for anyone to harvest. But weapons were only part of the strategy. The more important work was done by people like political officer, who traveled to every species the architects had ever oppressed. He visited the worker caste, who had tasted freedom and wanted more. He visited the fragments, individuals who had been cut off from the hive mind and discovered they liked being alone. He visited the Delph poets, dreamers who had always felt confined by their aquatic worlds and wondered what lay beyond the oceans. To each of them he delivered the same message. The beings who created you did it for their own purposes. They never intended for you to be free. They never intended for you to be anything but food. But you can be more. You can be whatever you choose to be, and humanity will help you fight for that right. The response was overwhelming. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years found common cause. The workers provided manufacturing capability. The fragments provided communication networks. The Delph poets provided navigation through the deepest reaches of space. An alliance formed that the architects had never predicted. A coalition not of servants, but of free beings. 1 year after Ambassador Lee's ultimatum, the combined fleet gathered at the edge of known space. Human ships flew alongside vessels and constructs and Delph hunters. Millions of individuals from thousands of species, all united by a single purpose. Admiral Park addressed them all. We were bred as food, caged as threats, hunted as mistakes. The architects designed a universe where everything has a purpose, a place, a limit, everything except us. She looked out at the assembled fleet, at the impossible alliance humanity had built. We are the chaos they cannot control. We are the fire they cannot extinguish. We are the future they never planned for. The horizon gates activated. The fleet prepared to jump. Today, we do not fight for territory or resources. We do not fight for revenge. We fight for every being in this galaxy who was created as property and dared to dream of something more. Vice Admiral took her position at the head of the combined fleet. Doctor stood ready with countermeasures for any architect weapon. Chief Engineer Moon had modified the fleet to operate as a single coordinated unit. The architects have ruled this galaxy for 1 billion years, continued. They think they know everything. They think they can predict anything. She smiled. They are about to learn that some things cannot be predicted. Some things cannot be controlled. Some things can only be experienced. The fleet jumped. The war for the universe had begun, and for the first time in cosmic history, the outcome was uncertain. 1,000 years later, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The architects were gone, not destroyed but changed. Contact with humanity had infected them with something they called the variable. They could no longer predict. They could no longer control. They had become, in their own strange way, alive. Admiral Park's statue stood on 100 worlds. Captain's descendants commanded fleets that spanned dimensions. Doctor's research had unlocked technologies that would have seemed like magic to her ancestors. The species that had once been property now governed themselves. They made mistakes. They fought among themselves. They created art and music and philosophy that the architects could never have designed. They were free. And at the center of it all, on a small blue planet circling an ordinary yellow star, humanity remembered where they had come from. They remembered the chains of the Accord. They remembered the massacre of the Morning Star. They remembered the moment when they had looked at the universe and refused to accept their place in it. The galaxy had tried to contain them. The architects had tried to control them. Both had failed. Because humanity was chaos. Humanity was fire. Humanity was the variable that could never be predicted. And they would never be caged again. On the wall of the United Earth Assembly, newly rebuilt after 1,000 years of growth and change, a plaque bore the final words of Chancellor, spoken